presenter is Dr. Ken Verni. Ken, I see that you are, oh, there we are. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
hello. Yes.
Hello, welcome. I know we had a little bit of technical difficulty this morning. Let me just give you a quick introduction. Dr. Ken Verni is a clinical psychologist and director of the New Jersey Center for Mindful Awareness, where in addition to programs for the general public, he provides training for mental health and school-based professionals in small and large corporations. Dr. Verni received his doctorate in clinical psychology from the Graduate School of Applied Physical Physiology. Dr. Verni is also affiliated with the Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care as a training and consultation specialist. All righty, so here we go. Let me make sure that I can allow your screen to be shared. Yes.
Yes, I think I saw, I already have that option, so very good.
Terrific.
All right, well, so thanks for having me and glad to be able to contribute to today. And, so my presentation is predominantly focused on each individual inside of an organization, inside of a, whatever, our family units, our company units. So very, very individually focused today. And actually, I want to address those of you who are listening and maybe also might be watching this at some point either on a recording, to actually, even in this moment right now, we just spent some time listening to Anthony's presentation, and thank you, Anthony. And so we've spent some time in front of the computer. So why not right now just do a little bit of self-care, right? So a little bit of rolling of your shoulders. So we can't see you, those of you who are listening, so no worries. So even if you want to stand up and give yourself a good stretch, leaning left and right, or even if you're in your chair, just a little bringing the shoulders up towards the ears and back and down and forward, and then reversing the direction, rolling the shoulders in the other direction. Maybe you drop the left ear to the left shoulder and come back to center, right ear to right shoulder, back to center. You can drop the chin down, don't overdo it with the back of the neck, come back and then lifting the head up a little bit. So these are things that we can do in our chairs in the midst of our work day, family day, in front of the computer. The rolling of the shoulders back is good because we tend to spend a lot of time hunched over our keyboards or hunched over our phones. So opening up the heart and the chest area is very good. Yeah. So and a few deep breaths as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through a few things relatively quickly in the beginning, and then this way we can pause for a little bit and do a little mini mindfulness practice before we open it up to questions and answers. So we'll hope technology cooperates here as I share my screen. Looks like it is, and there we go. Let's see, just got to make it into presentation mode. All right, so ABCs of self-care. All right, so I'll put them all up here. Awareness, balance, and connection. All right, so awareness is tuning in, right? Tuning into our needs, our limits, and our resources that are available to us. So if we're trying to take care of ourselves, we're trying to support our health and our well-being, work with our stress in a way that supports our resilience, supports the health of our immune system. Awareness is a key component, because we, any kind of project, any kind of scientific exploration requires data, right? We all, so we need our own personal self data, and that requires that we turn inward, that we tune in, and we bring that awareness internally, checking in what's going on physically, what's happening in my body. Like I just invited us to do a little movement and stretching since we had been sitting and listening for a while. So checking in with our physical needs. All right, the natural world doesn't suppress their physical needs as much as we do. We might sit at a computer or do something for hours, knowing that we need to go to the bathroom, and we just kind of push it off, we push it off, we push it off. So really kind of staying open to what's the body calling for, you know? And can I offer it that? Can I offer a little bit of a stretch here and there? Maybe if I'm feeling tight, can I stand and move? Do I need to step outside a little bit, get a little fresh air, come back in? So really tuning in as best we can to what our needs are, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs, really kind of checking in that way. Balance, right? Good old, yes, maintaining that balance between work, play, rest. I loved what Anthony mentioned. One of the lists there was this not trying to make up for productivity because of, you know, I got less time or something, or wind up working more to make up for productivity. So very important to maintain balance. The boundaries around our workspace and our work time have become, you know, very almost hard to find unless we're pretty specific about that. So there's the balance and connection, staying connected to ourself, as I kind of, this whole process that I've been describing is a way of staying connected to ourselves, others, and to some sort of sense of a larger purpose or a larger perspective. So that's the awareness, balance, connection, just kind of touching in on a few things to kind of use as reminders. The next one I want to touch in on is protect, direct, and connect. So these are sometimes described as psychological first aid, how to sort of take care of ourselves in the midst of a challenging circumstances. And so protecting ourselves, minimizing exposure to additional stressors. So we're already dealing with a global pandemic. I mean, this is unique to our generation, to a couple of generations. This has not happened before. We also have this upswelling of awareness around some of the social injustices in the world that are also percolating in these days right now. So it's really important to pay attention to your diet. And what I'm talking about is your digital diet, your news diet, right? The news, the digital news, the cable news, they're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's in their interest to keep you hooked as much as possible. So you have to really pay attention to how much do I really need, you know, and how much of this is you know, am I just kind of hooked in? And maybe can I check in the morning? Can I check in the afternoon, you know, in the evening, and the rest of the day leave it? Otherwise, we're following the ticking of numbers as numbers are rising, and you know that, you know, I don't need to go into it, but so there's protection around that way. And maybe it's also protecting yourself by saying no to some extra projects, or maybe there's a lot of Zoom invitations going on or other online invitations, and they all seem very attractive and interesting, but perhaps you need to just give yourself some space and a little more less screen time and things like that. So directing efforts on positive and adaptive coping, healthy behaviors. You know, this is, you know, I don't have enough time to talk about this, but to really, it helps to be purposeful. The one thing I will say is I want to invite you to consider starting your morning, tomorrow morning, as today's Friday, so Saturday morning, starting your morning with just a little bit as you wake up before you get out of bed, taking a moment to pause, to breathe, to maybe roll the shoulders, move the head and neck, stretch, so that you begin your day with presence, with dignity, with a degree of intentionality, and that you're not just, you know, launching up out of bed and just getting pulled along by your to-do list and the needs of others, or sort of hooking into the digital feed before you even stand up, before you even go to the bathroom or something. So starting the day like that can be a tremendously helpful statement of self-care. And it's something that I'm pretty passionate about, as you can hear, but wanting to really invite you to consider that, to do that, and then check in if you're going to check in with whatever you need to check in. And then we already talked about the connection in the ABCs, staying connected to social supports, phone calls, checking in through a Zoom contact, little by little doing some social distance socializing as we go forward. Next slide. So now moving into mindfulness a little more specifically. So this cartoon is one of my favorites for teaching mindfulness. I use a lot of cartoons in my classes and trainings that I do. And you see here, it says mindful or mindful, right? So these two beings are there. They're both in an environment with 4 trees and a sun. And the one is fully present there with the 4 trees and the sun, as the thought cloud shows you. And then the other one, that's us, right? We are more in our heads, right? We're more in the would've, should'ves, could'ves, how come, if only, what if. Yeah. So the one of the central learnings that come from mindfulness practice is that the body, right? Your body right now, as you're listening, you're seated on a chair probably, or a couch or something. And the body is in contact with that chair and the floor beneath it. And so this is what we call embodied awareness, bringing awareness into the felt sense of the body and that certainty that's there, right? In an uncertain world, in a chaotic world, lots of variables. We don't know when things are going to happen, particularly during this time, right? And yet there is that certainty of touch and contact. So that can be very grounding during these times and really offering that. So the body is reliably in the present moment. The mind, who knows, right? Mind travels into the future and it travels into the past very often. And so now just very briefly, the science beneath this cartoon is something called the default mode network, that when we are not focused and concentrated, like if we're doing a puzzle or we're knitting or we're working in the garden or we are maybe working on some work project, when we're not doing that in a very sort of specific way, the mind defaults into a lot of self-referential rumination. We're all familiar with that, right? The sort of narrative loops, the would've, should've, could've, he said, she said, how come, if only, that kind of swirl of the mind that we know and we're familiar with, we carry it around. That's called the default mode network. The mind defaults into that if it's not being intentionally directed somewhere. And the less time we spend in that kind of ruminative, wandering place, our anxiety goes down. Our depression goes down, our tolerance for self and others go up, our memory, self-awareness, goal setting, all benefit from that more present-centered attention and less of the wandering. So that's what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness is kind of like a training of attention, and we train attention, we train the mind to stay present. It wanders off and we come on back, and it wanders off, we come on back, and we're building a mental muscle of attention. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, and just now here's our little practice for today, and a practice you can carry with you and use at any point in time. It's about pausing, the power of pausing. Yeah, there's a writer, Anne Lamont. She talks about, she says something like, everything these days works better if you unplug it for 5 minutes. Yeah, and like I had some technical problems, so I had to restart my computer. That seemed to solve it. If you have trouble with your smart TV, your router, you unplug it. Yeah, and then you plug it in. So we could take some of that. This is something from technology we can take as wisdom. Yeah, that we need to intentionally, purposely for ourselves unplug a bit, stop, and settle. So this power of pausing, I draw on what they used to tell us in school, right? If there was a problem, if there was a fire, we were told stop, drop, and roll. And so using that phrase as a like a roadmap. And so let's see if you can do this now as you're listening in your wherever you're listening from and whenever you're listening. Intentionally and purposely pausing. Actually stop. Now, when we stop, right, we talked about how the mind flutters all over the place. We need to point the mind somewhere. We need to give it an anchor, something to anchor it into the present moment. So we stop and we drop attention. So seeing what it's like now as you're listening, to pause, to stop, and to drop attention, drop your attention into the felt sense of the body, and feel the sit bones in the chair, feel your feet on the floor, the touch of air on your skin. Maybe you might notice the coming and going of breath. And allowing a little time. We don't have as much time today together, but even now in this moment, allowing a little time for the antenna of attention to get used to the subtle messages of the body. This is where the self-care comes in, or the challenge with self-care comes in. We're so used to the rapid stimulus, the loud, the TV, the radio, the mind. Thoughts are very loud. The body is quiet. Unless it's in pain sometimes. As the body is quiet, it mostly whispers. So listening inwardly. It's the simplicity of touch, the certainty of contact, stable presence of the seat beneath you, the earth beneath that. Right? This isn't opinion. There's no fake news here. There's a certainty here. There's a body, and the body is in contact with the seat that you're sitting on, and this body is breathing. So we stop, we drop attention into the body in this way, and then the rolling is this rolling out of the welcome mat, just, this non-judgmental attention towards our present moment experience. It's mindfulness. What's here now? Noticing for yourselves, what's here now? Maybe, maybe a little sense of appreciation for being invited to stop and pause like this. Maybe some, agitation or restlessness. This isn't your favorite kind of thing to do. Maybe there's some fatigue that you notice. So in terms of self-awareness and making skillful choices about what we need from one moment or not, if we don't stop, take the temperature here, take the emotional temperature. What's here? What needs my attention in this moment? And then from that point, we move into a skillful response. So what we're practicing here, we're stopping, dropping attention into the body, rolling out the welcome mat, noticing what's going on in the body, what's happening in the heart, the emotional world. What's the mind up to? Is it a cloudy day in terms of my mood and thoughts? Is it an exuberant day? What lenses am I viewing the world through? Am I viewing myself through today? So we can catch and recognize what's predominant in the field of awareness right now. And we breathe, we notice, and then we take a skillful action and choose. Well, so, I had this quote at the end. This is Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor, a psychiatrist or neurologist, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He has this really tremendous quote here. He has many. It says, everything can be taken from a man or a woman but one thing. The last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. To choose one's way. Another way this is often described as the space between stimulus and response. So stuff comes at us, internal things, external stressors, internal stressors. And what we practice, what I'm inviting you to practice with that pausing, creating some space, taking a moment, we're practicing noticing what's here and cultivating our responsibility, our ability to respond instead of react. And the more we can, as individuals, respond instead of getting caught up in reactivity, the more that supports our own health, and it supports the collective health of our community as well, that we're not caught up in reactivity, but we can make a skillful choice, a skillful response. So I think I will, I think I'll leave it there for now. This is my practice center. It's in Monmouth County in New Jersey. We're teaching classes in that little barn there, and now doing everything online. Looking forward to some point when we'll be able to gather again. But doing a lot of teaching, both online, individual, groups as well. But I'll, let's see, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, I think. If anybody did want to